Good to go?
It's just setting up.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we're good.
Go for it.
Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhavika Giridhari Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shrita Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj Tirabha Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudi Varantaracharya Ki Jai. Jai Rasik Sirumani Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan, Shri Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal, Bhatta Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarup Damodar, Rai Ramananda, Gauda Parsada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikha Holsi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai, Burihat Mridanga Ki Jai, Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Nam Bhajan Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai. Jai Ekadasi Kartik-vrata Ki Jai. Ujjwala Brat Ki Jai. Jai Vrindavana Parikrama Ki Jai. Jai Bandiravan, Badaravan, Bailvan, Lohavan, Mahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadyavan, Kamyavan, Vraja-mandala Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Vraja-mandala Parikrama Ki Jai. 2021 Srila Gurudev Centennial Ki Jai. Culmination of 1 whole year's worth of seva. Shriman Yashoda Prabhu Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Kripa Vina Nahi koi sadhan bhat. Guru Kripa Bina Nahi koi sadam bhajamana bhajananushan oh bhajamana bhajananushan Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman मिलता नहीं ऐसा दुर्लभ जानमा मिलता नहीं ऐसा दुर्लभ जानमा ब्रह्मता हूँ चौड़ा हो भुवन ब्रह्मता हूँ चौड़ा हो भुवन किसी का मिलते हैं आहो भाग्यों से किसी का मिलते हैं आहो भाग्यों से हरि भक्तों के दर्शन हरि भक्तों के दर्शन श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान कृष्णा कृपा की आनंद मोती कृष्णा कृपा की आनंद मोती दिन जन करुणा निधान दिन जन करुणा निधान भक्ति भाव प्रेम तीन प्रकाशता भक्ति भाव प्रेम तीन प्रकाशता श्री गुरु पतिता पवन श्री गुरु पतिता पवन श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान श्रुति स्मृति और पुराना नमाहि श्रुति स्मृति और पुराना नमाहि कीनास्पष्ट प्रमाण कीनास्पष्ट प्रमाण तन मन जीवन गुरुपाद अर्पणा तन मन जीवन गुरुपाद अर्पणा श्री हरि नाम रता सदा हरि नाम रता श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान गुरु Charana Kamala Bhajama Charana Kamala Bhajama Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajama Charana Kamala Bhajama Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Param Gurudev Jaya Param Gurudev Param Gurudev Jaya Param Gurudev Jaya Param Gurudev Jaya Param Gurudev Param Gurudev Jaya Param Gurudev Srila Bhakti Prajnana Jaya Keshav Maharaj Bhakti Pragyan Srila Keshav Maharaj Srila Bhakti Prajnana Jaya Keshav Maharaj Jaya Bhakti Pragyan Srila Keshav Maharaj Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Radhika. As ever, beautiful, beautiful kirtan opening our Kartik 2021. Thank you so much. Vanchakalpa Trubhischa, Kripa Sindhuevacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavabhyo, Namo Namaha. Om Gyan Tiramandasya, Gyanjana Salakaya, Chakshur Militam Yana, Tashma Ishi Guru Namaha. Trinada Pisa Nichina, Tarora Pisa Hishnana, Amanina Manadena, Kitne Sadahari. Tate Nukampam Susamik Shamano, Bunjnaivit Makritam Vipakam. Hit Vak Papudevi Dadam Namaste Jivata Yo Muktisa Dayabak. Vacha Vegam Manashakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam Mudurapasta Vegam. Etam Vegam Yovishaheta Dira, Savam Apiman Pradvim Sasisyat. Anya Balasta Sunyam Gyan Kambyanavitam, Anukalenya Krishna Shilam Bhakti Uttama, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasadi, Gaura Bhakti Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Offer my Sastanga Dandavats to my most merciful Srila Gurudev, Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Gosvami Maharaj, to Srila Prabhupada, to the entire Parampara, to Sri Rupa Goswami, to Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, to Sri Rupa Goswami, to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Mahaprabhu, and Shri Radha and Krishna. And I offer my Dandavats unlimitedly to the assembled devotees, all devotees who will listen on YouTube and Facebook, and all those devotees who will listen on the recordings, and also all devotees who are also around the world on Parikrama or listening to Parikrama or participating in Kartik somehow, this most beautiful month, Hare Krishna. So it is with great excitement and enthusiasm that we are now entering this wonderful, glorious Kartik month. In 1515, following his desire, which he'd had for some time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan to do Parikrama. And he set up camp at Akuraghat. And he spent much time at the tree, the Imital tree, where he'd spend hours and hours chanting, absorbed in his japa, because it was there that he could evoke and feel that Vipralamba mood of Radharani. And he also went to many other places like Vrishramshtali, and he went to Bahulavan. And at Bahulavan, he remembered the cowherd boy pastimes. And the cows, he was in deeply absorbed, and the cows came up to him and they licked his transcendental body. And the peacocks danced in ecstasy, thinking, oh, Lord Krishna has come back again to Vrindavan, to Braj. And he went to places like Tamal Talgat, where he saw, he manifested or saw, he revealed, actually is the right word, revealed Radhakund and Shamakund. And he went to Gantuligram and Nandagram. So Mahaprabhu started this wonderful Kartik Parikrama. And 417 years later, in 1932, in October 1932, is our great, illustrious Jagat Guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Thakur, who reinstituted this flow of praying by inviting devotees to come on Braj Parikrama. And then his great disciple, Bhakti Pragyan, Srimad Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, he followed in the footsteps of his guru, and for decades maintained and grew this beautiful Parikrama. From 1954 until his disappearance in 2010, that's 56 years, my Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhakti-vrata Narayana Gosvami Maharaj, he participated in the Parikrama, and following the disappearance of his Guru Maharaj, Param Gurudev, in 1968, he led that Parikrama and expanded it, and so beautifully invited so many Westerners to join in the Parikrama from all over the world. So it grew from being a local Parikrama to being an Indian Parikrama to being a universal Parikrama with everybody welcome. And he always made us feel so welcome. And Sripad Bhaktivedanta Sridandi Maharaj will remember, because he came to Gurudev before me, he would remember maybe when there was only half a bus of Westerners, maybe only a few taxis of Westerners. And then by the time Gurudev left in 2010, there were buses and buses and buses of Westerners, so many of us. And now we join both physically and by Zoom on this beautiful Parikrama every single year. So Gurudev appeared on this earth to distribute the most highest praying, to teach us that we are Radhadasyas, to bestow to us what Mahaprabhu's promises, Manjari Bhav. He was given he had the keys already, but he was given the permission, if you like, to spread Ras Tattva, Bhakti Ras, more broadly and widely and deeply than ever before. So we know this is not some theology or just some doctrine. This is real spiritual experience that is going on in a more real way in the transcendental realm than anything on this planet. Anything on this planet that's material is real but temporary. The real reality is that transcendental world that is happening all the time in eternal time. So Gurudev, he wants for us, our parampara wants for us, that we understand and know our own name, our own spiritual form, that we know what our unique savor is in the spiritual world, and that we know what our service is to the divine couple, Radha and Krishna. We are here. He came to reveal to us our eternal destiny. Anya blasta sunyam gyang kamadhyana vritam anukalenya Krishna Srilam Bhakti Uttama. And while that verse says to please Sri Krishna, of course, we are pleasing Sri Krishna because we are desiring to be fully surrendered to Srimati Radhika. So in order to do that, we need to understand he taught us, we need to understand what is our relationship with Srila Raghunath Das, Sri Raghunath Das, in the line of the Rupa Nugas. What is our relationship with Rupa Manjari? How can we serve her, serving Lalita Devi, serving Radharani? This idea of, when we say relationship, the English word relationship is just too superficial to fathom what is our real dealing here. The word sambandha goes much deeper. And the definition of sambandha is bandha, to bind two entities with the rope of praying, and to do so, sun, to an infinite degree, to the most exalted manner, to the highest, to infinity. So we remain distinct personalities, yet one in heart. Our goal is to be one in heart with Srila Gurudev, so we can be one in heart with Rupa Manjari, so we can be tat tat atmik, one in heart with Srila Radharani, with Srimati Radharani, so we can serve the divine couple, so we can please Krishna. So the brilliance of Srila Gurudev is that he invited us every year to come to Navadvip Parikrama, to come to Kartik Parikrama, so that we could understand what this sambandha really means. How can we have sambandha? How can we have this connection unless we understand the pastimes, unless we understand the activities of our dear Radha and Krishna? Unless we understand their activities, we cannot understand their activities. We cannot understand anything. We cannot have connection unless we understand the locations in which these activities take place. And so his invitation to us to come to Braj is not for some theater or for some mythology, but to come and actually have absorption and to ultimately gain entry into the Apapakrit Leela by first having some entrance into the Prakrit Leela. So Gurudev, Srila Gurudev is so merciful because he bestowed this while he was on the planet. He's bestowing this continually, and this Parikrama is just growing and growing and growing. And we're so fortunate that in these 30 days of Kartik, all the way to November the 19th, I'm so grateful to Sripad Bhaktivedanta Chaitanya Maharaj for wanting to speak every day in the morning from 10 until 12. We'll be having this beautiful program. Tarun will be introducing the other speakers as well today. And in the evening, we have a whole array of speakers from 6 in the evening to 8 in the evening on the same places. But like all these things, everybody will have their own particular beautiful and unique perspective. So if you can, join both programs. And if your time is short, then come to one program. So before I hand over to Maharaj, who will also make an introduction before handing over to MC, I just want to play a short video, which is essentially Srila Gurudev welcoming us all to Kartik. So I shall press the, let me just get the video up on the, here's the video. Just need to share sound, share screen. There we go.
So if anyone comes and he will touch the dust of very beautiful and sweet pastime place of Krishna, then at once Krishna Prem should come in him immediately. He has so much determination and strong faith than Krishna Prem. And secondly, if anyone here with a strong faith and belief all the pastimes of Krishna, Damodar Leela, Ras Leela, Venu Geet, Dhamar Geet, Gopi Geet, Pranay Geet, and pastimes from the birth to Dwarka, especially of Vrindavana, especially of Kishore age pastime. Those who are telling and those who are hearing, both will have prem, deep prem, Braj prem, no doubt at all.
Haribol Maharaj.
Okay, Yashora. Oh, you want me to go now? Okay.
You were going to do a little intro before handing back to Tarun.
I'm just going to speak now?
You were doing an intro and then pass it back to Tarun, who'd invite.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
On
So,
Sarad Purnima, I think.
yes. Okay. So, thank you, Yashoda, for a very wonderful introduction and laying out the map of our journey for the next month, basically, and telling us how fortunate we really are to be together, even if it's virtually. Still, we will connect in Vrindavan consciousness for the next month, which is remarkable how from all over the world we can gather together in this format with this technology. So we're very grateful for all this arrangement has been made. So now I'm just going to offer some pranams, and then I will explain something about the speciality of this day, being the first day of Kartik. Namashrishtam manumapi sachiputram atrasrupam rupam tasyagrajam aruparim tiram gostavitim radha kundam girivaramaho radhikam rapsam prapto yasya pratita kripaya shri gurum tam natoshmi Om Magana Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Onmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaudachandraya Radhikaya Tadavaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Taranga Madhye Kripamayi Tvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tato Mamanastikatena Kapi. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams under the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times under the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotarasara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And to all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord listening now and who will get a chance to listen later on, my prostrated Dandavat pranams to you all. So thank you all very much for attending this morning. For many of you here in India, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're remembering deeply our pastimes during this time while my Gurudev's manifest presence was amongst us. And on this particular day, in the early morning, at around 6 o'clock, 6:30, we would all proceed to Jamuna Devi, and we would offer our prayers to Jamuna Devi. And traditionally, we would have our beloved Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj. He would be chanting and invoking all the various mantras to create auspiciousness at this time for the sadhaks, to enter into a mood of dedication. Principally, the Sankalpa is when we're about to dedicate our whole next month, this next 30 days, at least, with a much more serious, sober vision in our practice, in our thoughts, etc., trying to sincerely walk forward and make progress during this month. During this month, it's an amazing, powerful atmosphere. This is Ujeshwari. That means the power of Sri Radhika is unlimitedly present during this month. This is her month. So if we're taking shelter of Sri Radhika under the guidance of pure Rasik Vaishnavas and hearing their guitar, Srila Gurudev has promised to us that during this month, if we're very attentive, then many great obstacles can be purified in our road, but more than ever, our appreciation of our connection through devotion, as Yashodanandan Prabhu was just describing, this Sambandha Gyan, understanding who is Krishna more deeply and what is the nature of the material world that we are in, and appreciating who am I, the jiva, within this material situation. So today is, we will take our Sankalpa vow, and the devotees are encouraged to think of something in your life that you want to offer at this time as a sacrifice. Like already, as I described the other day, we're already following various dietary rules and regulations of the month of Kartik, but we can also personally take another vow that we know will strengthen ourselves personally in the coming month. And hopefully the purpose of this vow that we're going to take is that we will be able to continue it after the month of Kartik. Sometimes people, they chant extra rounds. Sometimes people, they rise earlier. So many different ideas that the individuals can have for increasing their practice with the idea of inspiring further devotion within their hearts. So we would listen attentively to all the beautiful mantras that were being chanted on the banks of the Jamuna. There would be hundreds and hundreds of devotees, and we would be hearing over the loudspeaker system the mantras invoking this auspiciousness at this time. And finally, when all the mantras had been spoken, then Srila Gurudev would say, he would take the mic and say very, very simply, now, everyone say after me, I want to be a Palya Dasi of Srimati Radharani. And we would all, like parrots, recite this back to Srila Gurudev. And even though practically all of us couldn't really understand what that meant, nevertheless, Srila Gurudev explained it was creating a sanskar for future lives where we would begin to appreciate the depth and significance of that desire, how to actually get this desire. First of all, we're wandering, confused in the conditioned state of mind, and we're perhaps focusing on just mukti, just being liberated from the various sufferings and sorrows of this world. And when that becomes somewhat purified, then perhaps we're trying to cultivate more significantly what is uttam bhakti, what is pure bhakti, as Yashodanandan again was saying, this anyabilasita shunyam, jnana karmadi anavritam, anukulina krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. What is this uttam bhakti? So Rupa Goswami has defined this path for us. So we're meditating in that mood of what is uttam bhakti, and we're aspiring for that by hearing this instruction from my Gurudev at that time to desire to be a Palya Dasi of Srimati Radhika. This is the gift of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu has come intentionally to give us an opportunity in this direction. And if we follow carefully Mahaprabhu's instructions, Mahaprabhu has been described as our Bhajan Shiksha Guru. By following carefully the verses like Anapita Chirim Chirat, Karuna Varitano Kalo, verses like this, etc. What is that Bhakti Shriyam? What is that gift of Mahaprabhu, as Yashoda Prabhu was saying, to eventually come to the stage of desiring to be a Palya Dasi of Srimati Radhika. So today is an extraordinary day, beside the fact that we're doing our Sankalpa. It's the first day of Kartik, and it's the Sarad Purnima. Today is the Purnima, Sarad Purnima, when the Maharas at Vamsivat manifested, and all of the Sakis attended this Maharas. And during this time, Sri Radhika demonstrates her supremacy by leaving that rasa. And Krishna immediately follows. We will discuss all these things as we proceed through all the different forests. Many times we'll discuss this particular topic and this particular lila of the rasa lila, and Radhika leaving and Krishna pacifying her man and the other gopis ultimately catching up, the entire Ras Leela unfolding. But on this particular day, especially is the Tirobhav, the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, who left at 6:15 in the evening. And it's been commentated by various very elevated personalities that he left in order to attend this Sarad Purnima Ras. So we are remembering this with great happiness and joy today. These personalities, they don't ever leave us. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has said, he reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and in living try to spread the holy name around. So the Vaishnavas, these exalted souls like Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, who came specifically to support the mission of Sachinandan Gaurahari under the instruction, the direct instruction of his Swamini, Shri Radhika. And he gave his entire life from a very early age. So we are going to unpack many of the glories in the next couple of hours. Our beloved Pujapad Nemi Maharaj will be speaking the glories of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, and also our dear most friend and guide, senior devotee, Srila Prakashatma Prabhu, will also be describing the glories of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj. So in this month in particular, beside it being the Sarad Purnima today, it's also the month when Mother Yashoda bound Krishna. It's also when Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill. And my Gurudev describes it's the month where the gopis attained Madanakya Mahabhav directly in the Ras Leela pastime. So this is the pinnacle that is going to be described during this month. And also, this is when Akrura, he came to Vrindavan and he took Krishna to Mathura, away from Vrindavan, for 100 years. So this happened during this month. Also, the killing of Kamsa happened during this month. Also, the Keshi demon was killed during this month. Also, Vyomasura was killed during this month. Also, Bahulastami, the appearance of Radhakund, manifested in this month. So also, Manasi Ganga at Giriraj Govardhan manifested in this month. So many auspicious occasions that we can celebrate throughout the next 30 days happened in this very month of Kartik. So this month of Kartik has all the wealth of these great leelas within this month. This month represents Sri Radhika, this Kartik. The name Kartik is from Kirtida. Kirtida is the mother of Sri Radhika. So it's explained also that this month is named in conjunction with Kirtida. So this Kartik month, Kartik Mas, and we are going to celebrate it extensively. We're going to visit all of the 12 principal forests of Vrindavan, and we will speak in every single place on all the different pastimes there for the pleasure of the devotees. As much as we are able to recollect from Srila Gurudev's Hari-gatha, etc., we will be presenting all of those leelas as we wander around for the next 30 days. So it's a very wonderful occasion today, in particular, the Purnima, the day of our Sankalpa, Sarad Purnima, the day when Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj enters into that Maharas, leaving this world, Nitya Siddha, into his Nitya Leela pastime. So everything about this particular moment in time is particularly enhanced more because it's also the 100th birthday of my beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. So it's his centennial year when, as we heard Yashoda Prabhu was describing, that he had led this parikrama for over 50 years, given his whole life to supporting this parikrama. And in his later years, then he gave this parikrama to us out of his great mercy and compassion. He sent his various preachers around the world, and he would beg us constantly, please come to Kartik during this month and join me in the wandering around in the various forests of Vrindavan. So many of us did, as Yashoda Prabhu was saying. I can remember the very last Parikrama, we had as many as 19 buses. So just full of Westerners. So this was a huge accomplishment of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj to bring the fallen souls from the West and to get them enthusiastic to stay for a whole month and travel with him throughout the beautiful forests of Vrindavan in order to give us these tremendous sanskars, these tremendous impressions, like Yashoda Prabhu was saying, of the apricot lila, the apricot world. Its backdrop is Vrindavan. All the leelas we're going to hear are in so many of them describing the actual pastimes from Prakat Lila. This month is also called the month of Niyama Seva. So this Niyama Seva, the yamas of the day, the 8 yamas, the 8 principal yamas of the day. First of all, we're starting off with Nishanta Lila, and then Pratar Lila, and then Purvana Lila, Madhyana Lila, Apurvana Lila, Sayam Lila, Pradosh Lila, and Ratri Lila. These 8 Leelas of the day we will be hearing about extensively. So it's an enormous package of meditation that we can access today. We can start our meditation and very carefully, daily, recite these beautiful astakams, this Damodar Astakam, this Radha Kripa Kataksha prayer, this Nanda Nandan Astakam, and we can, in the company and association of devotees, we can fully absorb ourselves deeply, significantly in Vrindavan Dham, this holy Dham of Vrindavan, which is non-different to Navadvip. So I personally am sitting still in Navadvip Dham. I haven't gone to Vrindavan this year so that I could more easily speak with all of you from here. In Vrindavan, it's very crowded, very congested, etc. I probably wouldn't have had the right sort of facility to speak with you every single day. But here, in this situation, it's a conducive situation for me, and I'm hoping that I can share with you the very best of whatever I can remember that my Srila Gurudev has imparted to us during these years that we spent with him on the Parikrama. So without any further ado, we'll carry on with our program now. And our dear Tarun Prabhu will introduce the Pujapad Nemi Maharaj and then Prakashatma Prabhu. And then again, I will speak something on the glories of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. And tomorrow, we will assemble for our first walking Parikrama day. The first place we'll go is Kaliya Krida. And then we'll go to Sanatan Goswami Mandir, and we'll finish with the Astasaki Mandir. So those are the places for tomorrow. We'll walk through those beautiful pastime places. So thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, kripa sindhavevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha.
Thank you, Maharaj, for taking us by mind to Parikrama with Srila Param Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and for also emphasizing all the different reasons why this month is so auspicious. And looking forward to hearing you speak on Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj later on. Our next speaker, as Maharaj said, is Sripad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj, who I'm sure many of you know, but for those of you who don't, he is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and latterly took sannyas from Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and also took shiksha from Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharti Maharaj. And we're very fortunate that he has been stranded in London for quite some time over lockdown, and we've been able to have his association and hear from him a lot. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Maharaj. I think I need to unmute you. Yes, it should work now. And when you're ready, you're welcome to begin.
Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshunmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namam Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. Namam Vishnupadaya Gaura Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Srimad Bhaktividyam Bharati Iti Namane. Vanchakalpatrubhishtam Namam Vishnupadaya Gaura Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Srimad Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Gosvami Maharaja Iti Namane. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasanandavyacha Putitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shadobhakti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So very fortunate to assemble virtually and begin to appreciate the glories of Vrata, glories of Sri Vraja-mandala Parikrama. Pujpad Chidandi Maharaj is described so nicely. He's really given a summary of what Srila our Gurudev would say at the beginning of Vrata month, praising the glories of this month. So I'm remembering how in Gopinath Bhavan at the beginning, we'd assemble in the morning and in the evening, and Srila Gurudev would be there with his beloved preachers around him. And we would listen to his beautiful Harikatha in the mornings and also in the evenings. On this day, after Sankalpa, we would go to Sri Radha Damodar temple, because this is Vrata, Damodar month, and take darshan of Sri Radha Damodar. And of course, my Guru Maharaj's bhajan kuti is there, and his kitchen. And then going round through on the Parikrama path there, performing dandavats, Srila Saraswati Prabhupada's Samadhi, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Samadhi, and then Srila Jiva Goswami's Samadhi, Srila Krishna Goswami's Samadhi, and then Sri Rupa Goswami's Samadhi in Bhajan Kutia. The first day is so much atmosphere. And I know Srila Gurudev wants us to feel that presence. Sadhu Sangha means actually being in association of these great souls. So Srila Gurudev is very much with us now, as always, but it's a very special time now. He puts so much time and energy into introducing us to Parikrama and taking us to the various holy places, not as tourists, but he was introducing us to the places and offering us to the personalities there. So on this day, we would glorify Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, because today is his disappearance day. He's my Param Gurudev. I'm very fortunate I have two Param Gurudevs. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, because Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj accepted me as his Shiksha disciple and sannyas disciple also. And then also Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, our Gurudev said that we should try to understand the specialities of great personalities. There's a special reason for that. One thing is that when we hit on the point of just actually what their speciality is, what is their particular contribution, so they will be pleased. Oh, yeah, you've really understood what my life is about. You've understood what my mood is. So they'll be pleased. They'll give particular qualities. They will also come to us. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, right from very early time, he was an extraordinary personality. This extraordinary pastime when he'd been put out by his mother for after oil massage, like very small baby. And this huge bird came down, picked him up, flew into the sky with the baby. And all the villagers are crying and shouting. And then the bird came and put him, there was some kind of bark, tree bark, in a pond. And the bird put the baby on that and they recovered him. Extraordinary occurrence. Srila Gurudev said that Guru Seva is the backbone of bhakti. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, he's an ideal example of Guru Seva. He was very, very dear disciple of Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. There were two disciples. Saraswati Prabhupada would address as two. And that was Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, and the other one, as far as I know, is Paramananda Prabhu. So he was very close to Saraswati Prabhupada. He came right at the very beginning. One of his aunts was the first female disciple of Saraswati Prabhupada. And 1915, they went on Parikrama. This is the first time that Vinod had seen Jyotsna. He'd actually seen Saraswati Prabhupada. He was enthralled. He offered his life at his lotus feet. So after the Parikrama, Saraswati Prabhupada was talking with his aunt, with Param Gurudev's aunts, and he was saying that I want to establish mats on all of the 9 islands. And one of his aunts said, "How are you going to do that? You don't even have enough people to ring the bells in the arati in the one mat." And Saraswati Prabhupada said, "Oh, he will do." So after that, he was at college. He was also very remarkable. At that time, there was the independence movement against the British. And Param Gurudev was taking part in that. He was hiding in the jungles and carrying out, and at the same time, he was studying at college. But he became discouraged at college because he saw that the teachers there, they were explaining things in an impersonal way. For example, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, they were studying. Imagine studying Chaitanya Charitamrita at college. So they were studying Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the teacher was explaining in an impersonal way. And Param Gurudev would explain from the Vaishnava point of view. And finally, he thought, there's no use in being here. And in 1918, maybe 3 or 4 years after he'd met with Saraswati Prabhupada, he gave up college, left home, and he went to stay with Saraswati Prabhupada. Before that, his mother was Zamindar. His father had passed away. His mother was very strict. So on one occasion, Gurudev relates this pastime that he came back late at night, and his mother was there with a stick. "What have you been doing? Why are you wandering around like a homeless child? What's going on?" So very calmly, he explained that he and some of his friends, they had a club, a society, and they were helping poor people. So he'd been given money for tiffin. And instead of spending that on himself, they were spending on getting medicines and helping people. So on this particular occasion, one old lady had had cholera, and they'd arranged for her to have medicines and a doctor. And he came back late after that. And his mother became very repentant, really. She dropped the stick and she was crying, embraced him and said, "Oh, I'll never chastise you again." She said that she loved him more than all the other children. And she was deeply aggrieved when he renounced family life and went to stay in the mud. Guru Sevak, his ideal Guru Sevak, right from the very beginning, there were hardly any devotees in Chaitanya Math at that time. His mother, after some time, Saraswati Prabhupada got a letter saying that his mother was ready to pass away. So Saraswati Prabhupada told Param Gurudev that you have to go home and see your mother because she's ready to leave this world. So Param Gurudev went back into his room. And after some time, Saraswati Prabhupada asked the other devotees that, has he left? Has Vinod Brahmachari left or not? And they said, no, he's not left. So Saraswati Prabhupada called him and said, I told you to go and see your mother. Why haven't you gone to see her? She loves you so much. And Vinod Brahmachari said, yes, I understand that she loves me so much. And that's why I haven't gone to see her, because she may on her deathbed tell me that, oh, you should stay here at home and take care of the family property. Then in that case, how could I refuse her deathbed request? Because that's taken as very final. Just like my Guru Maharaj, when he was passing away, he called our Gurudev, and he said that I want you to put me in Samadhi and I want you to look after my disciples. So our Gurudev, he was reluctant. He saw this is a very, very heavy instruction. So Vinod Brahmachari said, I didn't want to go against my mother's wishes, so that's why I stayed here. And Saraswati Prabhupada was very deeply, satisfied and moved to see how Srila Param Gurudev, he put service to, excuse me, his son's coming in now, service to his guru before his service to his mother. On another occasion, this was much later, already Saraswati Prabhupada, he'd been preaching very strongly against the caste Goswamis who claimed exclusive right to Krishna consciousness, exclusive right to Vedic knowledge, although actually they're in seminal line and not in disciplic line. So the caste Goswamis and the Babajis, many, they were very, very much against him. So on one occasion on Parikrama, huge Parikrama, and when they came to Paramatala in Navadvip, the Babajis, caste Goswamis, and other Gundas and all, they were there with bricks and soda bottles, and they started throwing them down on the pilgrims. They actually wanted to kill Saraswati Prabhupada. So Param Gurudev, the pilgrims are running here and there, and Param Gurudev pulled Saraswati Prabhupada into a Grihasta's house and told him, now please, you will change clothes. I will take your clothes and you will take my clothes, and that way you can get back safely. So Gurudev says that this was actually, it was a pastime whereby Srila Saraswati Prabhupada actually gave his danda to Param Gurudev. So in that sense, he gave him sannyas. Although during Saraswati Prabhupada's lifetime, he could never give him sannyas. He wanted to. But Param Gurudev was such an expert manager that his godbrothers protested. It said, if you give him sannyas, then the management of the mutt will completely disappear. Param Gurudev used to ride, he had 2 horses. Now, I mean, you can just imagine, he's a young brahmachari, and he had these 2 horses, and he wore quite gorgeous clothes also. And he was very active in the local community, as well as maintaining all the affairs of the mart. So some of the devotees, they began to criticize him. And they're thinking that, yeah, he may be a good manager, but he's like very extravagant. He gives too much money when he goes on a boat or rickshaws. And they wrote a letter to Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. And Saraswati Prabhupada was very, very dissatisfied. He said, actually, he's ideal Guru Seva. He's actually penetrated the deep meanings of Vedanta, our Siddhanta, and at the same time, he's serving me in so many ways. He's ideal Guru Seva. He said, anyone who criticizes a Vaishnava is not a Vaishnava. And they're inviting their own destruction. There was one of Saraswati Prabhupada's very prominent disciples, a little proud of his learning. So one day he came to Vinod Brahmachari's bhajan kutir, or room, and then I found he was reading Vedanta Sutra. So actually at that time, the young devotees, they weren't allowed to read so many literatures. So he said, what are you doing? Are you actually reading this? Do you understand what you're doing? Or are you just moving the pages around? So Vinod Brahmachari said, well, if you'd like to ask me some questions, I can try to explain. And this Ananta Vasudeva, as far as I remember. So he started asking questions, and Param Gurudev began to answer simply, but in a very profound way. And this senior devotee was very, very impressed. He had thought that he was just an expert manager and not actually expert in devotion. Param Gurudev, he understood that 2 or 3 times. Once he arranged for, the Muslims had created a graveyard, burial ground, on sacred ground in Navadvip. And Param Gurudev, in a very ingenious way, one night he took devotees there, they dug up all the graves, and they planted it wasn't a new garden, they planted older trees, so that in the morning, instead of the graveyard, there was a beautiful garden there. And the Muslims, they protested, but there was no, the British, they couldn't find any, they couldn't see the graveyard, and there wasn't anything on the maps either. So there was no case to bring. Another occasion, there was one personality staying in Thakur Bhaktivinoda's house, and Vinod Brahmachari, he sent fighters with sticks. So they began fighting with sticks outside the house. And this person, he left the house. So in that way, he liberated that place. And then a great service, Saraswati Prabhupada had actually previously, he'd sent him to have darshan of Srila Jagannath, not Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, of Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, Srila Saraswati Prabhupada's Diksha Guru. At that time, Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, he become tired of people coming and asking for his blessings and like materialists. So he'd taken up residence in a toilet. Now, Indian toilets are not like Western toilets, polished porcelain seats and like that. But he preferred the smell of the toilet to the stench of materialists. And when the locals tried to invite him to come out, we made nice bhajan kutir. He said, no, I can't leave. So Saraswati Prabhupada sent Param Gurudev, Vinod Brahmachari, and some other devotees to have darshan Srila Gaura Babaji Maharaj, and they knocked on the door. Oh, I can't come out. I'm too tired. I can't move. So one of the devotees said, oh, but Saraswati, we've taken initiation from Saraswati Prabhupada, and he sent us here. We'll be very, very discouraged if we don't have your darshan. And then when Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, he heard this. He was so affectionate. Saraswati Prabhupada, oh, my Prabhu sent you. And he opened the door. And then especially when he saw Vinod Brahmachari, so young and very beautiful and strong and so sincere, he was very deeply moved, and he gave him blessings. He said, I take away all of your difficulties. And afterwards, Param Gurudev said that he was able, because of that, to preach so broadly, widely. So after Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj passed away, the Ganga was changing course, and it was threatening his samadhi. So although Saraswati Prabhupada didn't say anything, Vinod Brahmachari with others, they managed to move the whole samadhi by boat and took it over to the other side of the Ganga, now in, what's that, Chaitanya Mad. And then the Babajis and all, they brought a case against Vinod Brahmachari, and the British judge said this is a very serious offense. There's a very heavy penalty. But Vinod Brahmachari, he stood up in court. He said, no, actually, we are not Christians. We are following Vedic principles. And according to our Vedic principles, under special circumstances, one may move a samadhi, and there are many, many instances. And the judge accepted. So he's Guru Sevak, very powerful preacher. He used to say, if you don't have 3 or 4 court cases going against you, it means your preaching is very weak. And Srila Gurudev liked that. Coming from a very feisty, our Gurudev is coming from a very feisty stable. And he's also very, very rasik. So, for example, now we're starting Damodar month. On one occasion, our Gurudev, he'd been reading Shri Gopal Champu by Srila Jiva Goswami. Now, Jiva Goswami is a very, very profound philosopher, and also very rasik poet and narrator of pastimes. So, Srila Gurudev had been reading Damodar Leela in Shri Gopal Champu, and he was very deeply moved. And he went to his Guru Maharaj, and he said, how could such a philosopher also write in such a delightfully rasik way? And he began to read Damodar Leela from Shri Gopal Champu to his Guru Maharaj, to Param Gurudev. And Param Gurudev, he said, Param Gurudev started exhibiting symptoms of bhav that he'd very, very, very rarely seen. He used to dance in kirtan with his danda in a very beautiful way, very ecstatic way. It's tragic that we haven't seen these things, that we haven't been in such an atmosphere. We've seen our Gurudev in his latter years, Srila Bhakti Bharati Maharaj in his latter years, my Guru Maharaj also. But I haven't been in that atmosphere where so many pure devotees are gathered and glorifying. So there's so much to, one can never finish glorifying Srila Param Gurudev. He's an extraordinary personality, he's an ideal Guru Sevak, very, very rasik Vaishnava, and a very powerful preacher and a very powerful supporter of the Vaishnava Siddhanta, and also Parikrama and the various services that Srila Saraswati Prabhupada established. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj especially, he was the one who continued these services, like Parikrama and the Brihad Mridanga, the press. So today I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams at his lotus feet, and I'm praying for his blessings to serve his beloved disciples, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, my Diksha Guru, and also that I can advance on the path of bhakti. my Dandavats to all devotees. Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpatarubha Shakti Vasan Devachat. Putitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Very bold. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you for relating all of these beautiful leelas of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj. They're all extraordinary in different ways. And I don't know, personally for me, whenever I hear them, it just increases my faith so much. Yeah, so thank you so much, Maharaj. Our next speaker is Sriman Prakashatma Prabhu, who is also a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, very senior disciple, and he came to Srila Param Gurudev, Srila Narayana Goswami Maharaj, sometime in the 90s, and currently he is residing in France, and he will also be speaking on Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj. So when you're ready, Prabhu, you're welcome to begin, and you should be able to unmute yourself now. Very well.
Hare Krishna. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Miritamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gaurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tataraye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tatbhaktaya Namo Namaha. So I'd like to thank Yashodananda Prabhu for his wonderful seva in making this possible among devotees around the world for the past year, and all his team, starting with Tarun Krishna and all the other devotees. I'd like to thank also Tridandi Maharaj for inviting me, and all the other Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Thank you to be tolerant for my my attempt to glorify one of Srila Prabhupada's very dear godbrother, and he's very dear to us. Sri Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj is very dear to us because he gave sannyas to our Srila Prabhupada, and we have heard probably the glorification of Srila Prabhupada to his dear godbrothers on his disappearance day. And whatever I've heard or read about my dear uncle is that he had the same character as Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada. He was very straightforward, very bold, and the same kind of preaching. Sometimes some people may call it very harsh, but this is very much in the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and also Srila Ananda Tirtha Madhvacharya, not to have any compromise as far as Tattva Siddhanta is concerned. So it is interesting to see that Kesava, it's a name that was revealed to him in a dream. That's the sannyasi name, Kesava, among the 108 names of Vaishnav sannyas, Kesava. And Kesava has two meanings. One meaning that is well known is the name of Vishnu, meaning the killer of the Keshi demon. And another meaning is a name of Krishna, describing his very beautiful long hair. So Kesava actually indicates that one acharya has to be very, very expert in defeating the demons of doubts and wrong siddhanta by establishing the right siddhanta. And at the same time, like Nemi Maharaj was saying, to also be very rasic and worship Shri Krishna. That both qualities are there in Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Gosvami Maharaj, as well as Srila Prabhupada, as well as Srila Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They have both Jiva Goswami. They have those qualities of establishing the right Siddhanta and also speaking about the highest rasa. And Bhakti Pragyan also has two meanings. Bhakti means the abhideya by which we can come to the absolute goal. So it starts with sadhana bhakti leading to raganuga bhakti. And pragyan can be translated as consciousness. So this again, bhakti pragyan means head and heart. I'm saying this because if you are only an intellectual, you may become a haghead. People cannot relate to you. You may speak very abstractly, and the heart may be very dry, or else you're a very, very sensitive person, and you're using this to cover this sensitivity. Only heart is no good either, because one becomes a sentimental. So Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Bhakti Pragyan means Krishna Chaitanya, or has Srila Prabhupada translated it, Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means Krishna Chaitanya. And Acharya Kesava, he was embodying this, the teaching of Krishna Chaitanya. Our Srila Gurudev was saying in his book, glorifying his Gurudev, that his Gurudev was expert in everything, that he was an expert management, and he was also manager. He was expert in court case, like Maharaja said, and expert in Siddhanta. And again, I can say that whoever has known our Srila Prabhupada, that he was also expert in so many different fields. I have rarely found a human being that can be so expert in so many different fields. Usually we have one or two qualities, but these great souls who are actually bosom friends, they combine all these different qualities. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, he didn't take sannyas when his Gurudev was there, because as Maharaj just said before, he was so expert in seva. And if he hasn't been there, then there will be many things lacking in the mat. And so he was a brahmachari, Vinod Bihari brahmachari. And once his Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, asked him to glorify Paramananda brahmachari. They were both friends and serving in the mat. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, he liked this very much, to have some kind of a context where one devotee glorifies another. Sometime, I don't know about you, but I can be very expert at criticizing others. And there's not no difficulty. But it is very difficult sometimes to glorify someone, to find genuine qualities. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was very expert at making devotees glorifying each other. So he asked Vinod Bihari Brahmachari to glorify Paramananda. And he started to offer his prayers. You know this prayer, Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripam Tamaham Bande. And one version ends with Paramananda Madhavam. This, by the grace of this Paramananda Madhava, who is Krishna, then someone who is dumb can speak very eloquently, and someone who is lame can cross mountain, Giri. So he's saying, Paramananda, this brahmachari, he's giving me this strength to speak and to glorify him. He's a perfect Guru Sevak, He cooks for Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta. He cleans his cloth, and he's very expert in everything. All glories to Paramananda Prabhu. And we find truth of this in Vedanta Sutra. It says Ananda Mayo Vyasat. Ananda Mayo means the supreme that is endowed with great happiness. In the Upanishads, it is described how there are different kinds of level. First, the level of satisfaction. Annamaya means to feed the body. Anna means grain, and we feed the body with grain. Then there's pranamaya, this is life, air. If we don't have this breathing, then the body is dead. Then there's manomaya, which is the mind, and vijnanamaya, which describes the soul. This is like a pyramid, let's say. Like we start with the body, then the function of the body of eating and breathing, then the function of the mind, to think, to feel, to desire. And then finally, vijnana means the soul, according to Sri Ramanujacharya. And ultimately, this Arandamaya describe the Aranda Purusha, who is the Param Purusha, Krishna. Why? Because abhyasat, because of repetition. In many of the Upanishads, Veda, and Puranas, it is always described how the Supreme Lord is Ananda Purusha, Paramananda. In the Bhagavatam also, Sri Brahmaji, he's saying, Aho Bhagyam, Nanda Gopa Vrajikasam, Yan Mitram Paramanandam, Purnar Brahma Sanatanam. Oh, how incredible, incredibly lucky are those little Gopa to be friends with this Paramananda. They are friend, Mitra with Paramananda, who is Purna Brahma Sanatanam, the full embodiment of Brahma. And they can experience all this Ananda through him. And so Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami, who is still a brahmachari, he goes on like this. And he says at the end of Vedanta Sutra, the last sutra is Anavriti Shabdat, Anavriti Shabdat. It's repeated twice because this is the end of the book. And Shabda, so no more coming down to this material world on account of sound. And this sound is, this Shabda Brahma is the Nam of Krishna. Nama Shintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. That this name of Krishna is Chintamani, can produce everything, and is Chaitanya Ras. Chaitanya, he came to taste this Ras, which is also Ananda. Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that this Ananda is always growing. In this way, Vinod Bihari described the glories of his godbrothers Paramananda in a Vedantic way. This is actually given by Srila Gurudev. I'm not inventing anything. And Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, when he heard all this, he was very pleased. And he told him, please study and teach Vedanta Sutra. And this is what he did. Actually, later on, he started the Gauriya Vedanta Samiti. And he called all of his sannyasi Bhakti Vedantas. Just like Srila Gurudev continued the tradition, also giving sannyas with the title Bhakti Vedanta. So there's Bhakti, yes, this Bhakti is of the highest kind, being Raganuga Bhakti, but also Vedanta, the end of knowledge, the end of all the scriptures. In the month of Kartik, one day also, Srila Gurudev, he's writing in his book that in the month of Kartik, one time, this was Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami organized this Parikrama, but in Navadvip. He didn't go to Vrindavana. And on this particular occasion, he was lecturing every morning on different scriptures, among which Vedanta Sutra. And he knew all the commentaries. Shankaracharya and Bhaskara and Ramanujacharya and Marvacharya and Digyana Bhikshu and Nimbarka or Nimbaditya-charya. And he was lecturing every day, saying, now it's a time to know the absolute truth. You know, Atato Brahmajigyasa, you have to inquire, you have a human life, you have to inquire about the absolute truth. You should not waste your time like an animal that only does eating and sleeping, mating and defending. And this, how can we define the absolute truth? Janmadiya Shayataha, he is the creator and maintainer and destroyer of this entire world. How do we know this? Shastra Yonitvat. This is the first three sutra of Vedanta Sutra. Atato Brahma Jigyasa is the first sutra. Janmadiya Shayataha is the second sutra. And Shastra Yonitvat, third sutra, because the scriptures are saying this. How do we read the scriptures? Then the next sutra is Tattu Samanvayat. It explained that we have to understand there's many, many, many different scriptures, and we have to find what is the links between these different scriptures. They all link, they're all saying the same thing. Then the next sutra is saying that Tattu Samanvayat, and then it is not true that Brahma is Ashabda. That like impersonalist I was saying, we cannot describe the absolute. We cannot describe God because he's beyond words, he's beyond the mind, and therefore no words can actually describe. And so they take this sutra and all the different scriptures incapable of describing. But actually it is possible. He's describing every scripture in this way. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, he was explaining the first four sutras in such a way that many devotees who were there, including some scholars and sannyasi, brahmachari of different mat, and including also an impersonalist from Advaita philosophy following Shankaracharya. Now, they were actually stunned by his explanation, and they asked him to pursue. After the Kartik month has ended, they said, please continue with the description of the absolute truth given in the Vedanta Sutra. So this Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, he told this impersonalist, he told him, if I continue glorifying according to the Govinda Bhashya of Srila Bharadev Vidyabhushana, then I'm afraid you will have to give up the reading of Shankaracharya. And that impersonalist scholar, he smiled, he said, oh, that is okay. Because he felt that he was such a gentle scholar. Because this is another thing. Our scholars in Gaudiya line, they may seem very fierce, to start with. They use very, very strong words. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, when he described in one of his actually different articles that were compiled, describing the history of the Mayavad, he says that demons were actually, all the Mayavad philosophers were demons in the past. So he's saying that the great Kamsa, of course, in different age, and Ravana, they were actually Mayavad scholars. So it seems to be very, very harsh to hear, especially in a day and age where everything has to be very smooth. We have to be politically correct. But actually, first of all, is to establish something very strongly, to make a point clearly, because nowadays people argue with you and they never want to admit if you're telling something that is logical and something that is to the point, they never want to agree with you. So sometimes Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami, they were using very strong words. But if you know the real character of those individuals, they're actually very, very kind. If you know some intellectual people, very often you find someone who is very proud of his learning, and sometimes he's not very kind to others, or maybe he's hiding his sensitivity, like I said. But Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Gosvami, they were very kind to all of the devotees. And this is important to know. So one day also, someone asked Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami, why do you install deities in your temple that are always white? Krishna is white, Radha is white, Krishna is white. And this is not seen anywhere else. Usually Krishna, the deity of Krishna is black and Radha is white. So hearing this, then he wrote as an answer, the Sri Radha Vinod Bihari Tattvashtakam, describing how Krishna is in the mood of separation with Radha, and so therefore he assumes a color. He becomes white. And when they are united, there's, of course, there's no differentiation, but when they become two, then you can see this white and black. And he goes on saying that according to the natural science, when the light of the spectrum, you have all of the different colors, but it becomes a white color. And it's not like in painting, if you mix all the colors, it becomes black. But in the light of it, you have all the different colors. But absence, when you have absence of this light, and it becomes black. So similarly, in the Shastra, it says, Sagunam Nirgunam Tattvam Ekam Edvat Vititiyam Sarva Nitya Gunar Gaura Krishna Rasas to Nirgune. That the Brahman, the Absolute, is both Nirguna, with all the different qualities, without material qualities, and Saguna, with all the good qualities. And so when it has all the good qualities, it is white, like Gora. And when it is devoid of qualities, then it is Krishna, it is black. So this is the way he describes. Srila Gurudev actually said in his Ashtakam, his Gurudev combined all the different Rasa Tattva and Tattva Siddhanta and everything that is valuable for us, because he, in a nutshell, he describes all the elements. So this is an important qualities. I asked Gurudev because the last translation he made was Vedanta Sutra. It's only in Hindi, but I asked him why he was doing this, especially after he has written a commentary on Gita Govinda, which is one of the highest rasic book. And he told me, Gurudev told me, because it is pleasing to my Gurudev. It is pleasing to my Gurudev. Sometimes we may want to only hear sweet rasa stories, and that is good. But if we only hear rasa, if we only concentrate on rasa, then maybe our heart will turn to become sahaja. And if you only study Vedanta and study intellectual matter, you may be turning into Mayavad. Both need to be there. The head has to be there, but heart also should be there, and vice versa. It is important. So I think that Param Gurudev and his dear disciple, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, as well as Srila Prabhupada, they all have this combination of perfect understanding and defeating all the wrong philosophies, very sternly, very directly, but also with kindness. And at the same time, they were full of rasa. They could explain, and they knew exactly, just like we are singing every morning, this Mangala prayer for the Nishanta Lila that was composed by Srila Bhakti's Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj. He describes the awakening of Radha and Krishna. So this is all I want to share today. Thank you very much for your patience. And thank you again for this wonderful seva you are making so that many devotees can speak and share their realization. Panchakalpa tarubhyacha kripasindu bevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhu, for your glorification. I was thinking, oh, what will you say after Nemi Maharaj has spoken so many different leelas? And then you went on and spoke so many more leelas, and it just emphasizes how the glories of Srila Keshav Maharaj are simply endless. And I really just want to reiterate that one point that you made at the start and the end, that both our head and our heart must be there in our bhakti, and how you also appreciate how you use the example of Srila Keshav Maharaj to really emphasize that as someone who was both. So thank you so much for your katha, and I hope we'll be hearing from you more in this month. And next, last but not least, I'm going to hand back to our dear Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj. I'm not going to really introduce you because you've already been introduced earlier. Maharaj is also going to speak again on Srila Keshav Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. Very well.
Dandavats Tarunji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Prakashatma Prabhu, for a beautiful presentation. Prakashatma Prabhu, he gives many classes on Vedanta Sutra, and he understands this topic very nicely. So he wove this in expertly with his presentation today. It was very nourishing. Thank you so much for that, Prabhu. Gurave Gaurachandrai Radhikaya Dadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tara Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. And first of all, offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Amasto Taratara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved, Nitya Lila Pravishta Amasto Taratara Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And today, on this exceptional, powerful day, first day of Kartik, we are always blessed to remember the monumental glories of my Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, because it was this month, this very day, that he enters into Nitya Lila. So we've been hearing beautiful glorification by Pujapad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj, very wonderful leelas, etc., and a beautiful, very erudite offering by Srila Prakashatma Prabhu. So thank you for that most nourishing katha. So as Tarun was saying, so much has been covered, but where will we begin? I remember so many times on this day, my Srila Gurudev could not speak. He would sit down to speak and be immediately overwhelmed. So many times. And it just emphasizes the extent of his guru nishta. This is one remarkable aspect when we glorify these personalities, to appreciate their guru nishta. As Pujapad Nemi Maharaj was saying, this guru nishta is the backbone of our devotional progress. And my Gurudev would just say a few words and then begin to choke. And then he'd pass the microphone somewhere else. Practically every year it was the same. He would want to glorify his Gurudev, but there was so much in his heart. And we understand that these great souls, these great Mahabhagavats that have walked amongst us in our line, in our lineage, when they demonstrate their affection for their Gurudevs, then we really appreciate what is the meaning of this Guru Nishta. They understand that every single particle of their knowledge, understanding, connection with Radha and Krishna has only been provided by the mercy of their Gurudev. They understand this so deeply and so significantly. And certainly, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj, he took his birth in 1898 and he left this world in 1968. So he walked amongst us for 70 years only, reasonably short amount of time. But in that time, he performed so much demonstration. He was called Kriti-Ratna, which means a jewel of activities. He had like so many activities, so many amazing pastimes or services that he was capable of performing for his Gurudev. As Pujapad Nemi Maharaj was saying, he was born in a family of zamindars, and he was used to dealing with general people in an authoritative way. On his own family lands, he would ride around on a horse and arrange for so many of the matters that had to be taken care of. And similarly, when he performed his seva for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he would do the same thing in a very authoritative, fearless way. It seems that this current of fearlessness has just been passed down from Sri Radhika herself directly. All the acharyas in our line, we see Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur most recently, and then what he was able to pass on to his son, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, in a most bold and powerful way. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati passed that same current of boldness and fearlessness to Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and of course to Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj. So today, in this consideration of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, we're understanding the relationship between Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So these three personalities are so much connected with each other, and also, of course, all connected to my beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. So we really see the family context, so to speak, of our lineage, our line. And it's interesting to note the situation when the Gaudiya Math folded remarkably. We see this amazing, powerful personality of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and his two closest disciples, Kunjabi Hari, his name was, and Ananta Vasudev. These two personalities were so close to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Ananta Vasudev, he could just carry on giving the lecture after Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had completed his presentation. Ananta Vasudev was extremely erudite and a very charismatic personality. He would lead the kirtans, etc., play brilliant mridanga. And Kunjabi Hari was a brilliant manager. So these two stalwarts fought strongly after Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati left this world, which was amazing to see. So the history is helpful for us to appreciate that even though someone appears to be such a close and near and dear disciple of the Guru, then when the Guru leaves, then his real Guru nishta is exposed. So when this fighting was going on, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, he had initially supported Ananta Vasudev in this battle for the properties of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. It's hard to understand someone of such a monumental character as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and the extensive, powerful teachings that he gave and spoke, that these two personalities should be squabbling about lands and temples, etc., after his departure. But this is the way of the conditioned souls. Once the great luminary departs, that this happened. But we see in the life of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj that he was initially supporting Ananta Vasudev. And then when they realized that Ananta Vasudev was directly deviating from the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, then Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj picked this up very quickly. So 2 years after the departure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in 1937, then Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, he informed Hayagriva at that time, who was the brahmachari name for Pujapad Bhakti Dvaita Madhav Maharaj, that they should create a court case against Ananta Vasudeva because he was actually abusing the properties of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj in 1939, he decided to leave the Gaudiya Math entirely. Now, this was a huge step. We can imagine he was a young boy of 17 years old when he joined his Gurudev's Math, and he witnessed the building of so many temples, etc., the accumulation or the gathering of so many students to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And we can imagine his nishta in that institution that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had created. And yet he walked away from it in 1939, 2 years after the departure of his Gurudev. He walked away from it in favor of pure bhakti. We can say like this. And also Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj walked away. And also Srila Pramod Puri Maharaj walked away. They all followed the example of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, because as Prakashatma Prabhu was saying, these personalities could not tolerate the slightest deviation from the Siddhantas that they had been taught, these sincere personalities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, when he was chanting those millions of names in what is present the Chaitanya Math now, then he had a vision of the Panchatattva. And at that time, they told him, they instructed him to immediately begin to preach. And they said at that time, directly, Mahaprabhu is revealing to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that I will send you men. I will send you sufficient men to support your mission, my mission. And every time any exalted devotee person joined Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Math, he would say, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has sent this personality. So all of these personalities that we read about, we understand, Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, Srila Pramod Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Dvaita Madhav Maharaj, all of these personalities were not ordinary personalities at all. They were greatly liberated, exceptional souls coming from the higher realm, from the spiritual world itself. And so when there was this split in the Gaudiya Math, this must have really shaken up Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj at that time to have to take such a dramatic step and leave his Gurudev's temples, etc. But he took his Gurudev's temples, he left his Gurudev's temples for the priority of Bhakti Devi. And he went to Koladweep, where he had 2 rooms. He had one room was there for some Thakurji Seva, and another room he stayed in himself. And from that room, it's described, he began, again, with no money practically, to resurrect the Navadvip Parikrama, which had not gone on for 2 years since the departure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was the first one to begin the Navadvip Parikrama, and he had no money, no resources. He just borrowed money. He knew how to acquire material objects, etc. He was intelligently astute in that way, as well as being brilliant, as we've heard in Tattva and Siddhanta simultaneously, just expert in all ways. So it's remarkable how all of those persons who left the Gaudiya Math at that time, it is as if they took the very beautiful aspects of the ras section, we can say, or the ras appreciation of the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, because today, Kunjabihari, he later became called Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj, and he acquired all the other properties except the Bagh Bazar temple in Kolkata. And Ananta Vasudev acquired that place. But later on, Ananta Vasudev, he committed suicide, and so many extraordinary events took place. And yet we see the power and the potency of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj carrying on the current of the message of his beloved Gurudev. His nishta to his Gurudev was uncompromising. So he took those teachings and he began again his own mission, just as Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj began his own mission, just as Srila Bhakti Dvaita Madhav Maharaj began his own mission, just as Srila Pramod Puri Maharaj began his own mission. And just like my beloved Gurudev, when there was great problem in the Devananda Gaudiya Math in the mid-90s, late 90s, then he also left that place, that temple, even though he himself also had been brought up in that temple, but he left in the pursuance of pure bhakti. So this marks a totally sincere personality, that their only vision, their only desire is to practice themselves the path of pure bhakti and to offer that uncompromisingly into the world. We see also in the case of the brother of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, he was encouraged by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj to accept sannyas. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wanted to give him sannyas. So he was hesitant to begin with, and then Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj convinced him to accept sannyas. But then after the departure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, again, he also began to deviate. He was wearing saffron cloth of the sannyas order, and he took that off and put on white. And he also stopped the Sankirtan. He was advocating, no, we should chant silently. And he also rejected the idea of doing Navadvip Parikrama. So these three injunctions that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had established during his lifetime, he rejected. This is the brother of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj. His name was Ulomi, Bhakti Ulomi Maharaj. And Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, even though it was his brother, this is another quality, even though like the family relationship had no bearing whatsoever on his carrying out his duty to his Gurudev in to rectify the behavior of his elder brother. So he filed a court case. And on the very day of the judgment, Alomi Maharaj, he put on saffron and he came to the courthouse with all the brahmacharis in saffron having Sankirtan. And he convinced the judge that, yes, we are doing Navadvip Parikrama. So the three injunctions that were brought against him were demonstrated by him to be null and void. So the court case went in his favor. And it was as if that Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj had lost the court case, but actually he spoke afterwards, no, this is the greatest success. I got him again to come back into the saffron order, again to perform his Navadvip Parikrama, and again to have loud Harinam Sankirtan. And today this temple is just down the road from where I'm staying now. And the devotees, they are regularly going out like that. So these kind of activities Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj performed. Also, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj, he would he would hire a train, an entire train. He would hire a train and go, for example, all around the north of India or in the south of India. And they would stop wherever they wanted to stop. And they had one bogie of the train was for cooking. The other was for their traveling purposes. And they would travel all around India like this. This was very revolutionary. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was extremely revolutionary, like his Gurudev. And this mood, this revolutionary mood, was passed down to my beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami, and the same revolutionary mood to Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. His mood, his uncompromising mood in preaching in the Western worlds, where Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada introduced women into the temple, for example. He allowed his followers to go and collect finances, money on the street, just wearing pants and shirt, etc. He allowed all kinds of things that previously had not been permissible. So that current is necessary to implant this extraordinary gift of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is so revolutionary in itself, to explain why Krishna was dancing with other men's wives. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving us the understanding of what is Parakya Ras. So this was a remarkable consideration for respectable devotees to accept. So Mahaprabhu has come directly to give this direction. Again, it's extremely revolutionary. Mahaprabhu himself is described as being the greatest non-conformist preacher. And we see all the way down the line this current of non-conformity, especially in Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his life and his lifestyle, his writing of the Sanskrit texts into local Bengali language, making it opening this box of jewels to the world to taste and understand. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, so extraordinary. We know his glories immensely. And Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, exactly in the same mood. We know the beautiful story, how there was a plot of land that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati wanted, and the Muslims had turned it into a graveyard. And one night, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj went there with some men. They exhumed all the tombs of the Muslims, threw them in the Ganga, and planted 10-year-old trees in the whole area and made a nice fence around it. So it looked like it was a fully established, like, orchard practically. And the next day, the Muslims were amazed, but they couldn't argue with the courts because the court could see that it looks like it had been an established property. And Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was able to take ownership of that property. So it's like Nemi Maharaj, Pujapad Nemi Maharaj was describing how he took his samadhi across the river and relocated it and had a court case come against him for doing that. So many very powerful things he did, this personality, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. And the powerful, extraordinary shishyas that he attracted to him, these three pillars of his mission, which he called the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. His three first sannyasis, which was Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikram Maharaj, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And we see and examine their strengths and their power. We see the same current, the same potency, the same non-conformity to anything that contradicts Shastra and Siddhanta. This is very, very encouraging for the sadhak to appreciate what capable hands are there to have molded our present circumstances. So it gives the sadhak today, us, a feeling of responsibility also to appreciate what are these siddhantas and tattvas that they have given their lives to put into the hearts of so many followers. So on this day, we are remembering with great happiness and great joy this immensely powerful personality, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. And just for example, as Prakashatma Prabhu touched on, how he even established a white Krishna. I mean, how revolutionary is that? Krishna had always been black, Sham Sundar, in all the temples, Gopinath. etc. Radha Govinda, always of a dark, blackish hue, black marble. And he established white Krishna. So how revolutionary was this? Because he was thinking that this is Krishna in a mood of separation from Radhika. Radha Chintanaveshanam Yasya Shanti Balopina Shri Krishna Charanam Brande Radha Lingita Vigraham, that he is describing in his Sri Radha Vinod Bihari Tattva Astakam. He's saying, let me read the translation of this verse, it's beautiful. I worship the lotus feet of that form of Sri Krishna, who by being absorbed in anxious thought of Srimati Radhika has assumed her golden feature. So this is an extremely esoteric mood and vision that Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj demonstrated in his life and what he gave to the world. So his gifts to the world are extraordinary. His writings are extraordinary. He wrote so many beautiful astakams, etc., as Sriman Prakashatma Prabhu was describing, this prayer we sing every morning. And he contributed immensely to the support of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Over and above everything else, the nishta that he demonstrated to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was replicated by the nishta that my Gurudev has towards him, and the nishta that Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has towards his Gurudev. So we see this very important quality and essence in all of these personalities is their tremendous Guru Nishta, unflinching Guru Nishta. So today we are celebrating with great happiness and joy these strengths of these immense personalities. So Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Thank you. Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevacha, Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnave Namo Namaha. There are so many more glories, but I think our time is almost concluded. Correct, Tarunji?
Well, I think we're scheduled till 12:30. Maybe Yashoda can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, because Kishori's been taken off to the other Parikrama, so no.
Okay, so I guess our time is up then. I want to thank you, Maharaj, for sharing. And just as Sripad Nemi Maharaj emphasized how each, I think it was Sripad Nemi Maharaj was talking about how each personality in our Guru Varg has their own specialities. You pointed out how simultaneously in our Guru Varg, there are some extraordinary qualities that they're all sharing. So you pointed out how our acharyas had this mood of non-conformity, and especially you emphasized their Guru Nishta. So you emphasize this exemplary importance of Guru Nishta and how they personified Guru Nishta, how they were so wedded to their Gurudevs. And Srila Pragyan Kesava Maharaj is a paramount example of that. And hearing all of this katha that we've heard for the last 2 hours about him really just demonstrates it. And there's so much more that can be said of him and of his service to Srila Prabhupada. And we're so fortunate to have a personality like him in our lineage. So I want to thank all the speakers today for their beautiful glorifications of him. I want to thank Sriman Yashodanandan Prabhu for again organizing this beautiful program, and for all the other devotees for organizing, for all the work that's been put in. I know there are so many different devotees who work to make these programs possible, and I want to offer my pranams to the entire Guru Varg. And now
Before we move on to the closing kirtan, just to let everybody know, tonight we have at 6 p.m. UK time, which is 1 p.m. New York time, which is 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, and in Hawaii it's 7 a.m. We have Srimati Shamrani Didi and Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bhagavat Maharaj speaking on the Sankalpa and the glorification on this disappearance day of Srimad Bhakti Vigyan Kesava Goswami Maharaj as well. So if you want
Bhakti Pragyan.
Sorry, what did I say? I'm
Vigya.
sorry. Sorry, Bhakti Pragyan. Sorry. Thank you, Maharaj. So if you want second helpings of this beautiful Harikatha, come back at 6 o'clock tonight, same Zoom link. Haribol. Thank you, Tarun, for beautiful emceeing. Thank you for wonderful speakers, a great opening, and thank you for everybody for coming in droves to listen to this wonderful Harikatha and pleasing Srila Gurudev and Parampara. Haribol.
Haribol. Without further ado, we will hand over to Shriman Manas Prabhu, who will lead in kirtan.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol, Prabhuji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Can you hear me good?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. Okay. So I actually don't have anyone to play drum with me, so I'll just lead kirtan by myself. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to sing. Thank you so much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Radha Krishna Prana Mora Jugala Kishora Radha Krishna Prana Mora Jugala Kishora Jivane marane gati aranahi mora Jivane marana gati aranahi mora Kalindira kule keli kadamera bana Kalindira kule keli kadamera bana Ratana bedira upara Oshabodo jana Radha Krishna prana mora Jugala Kishora Radha Krishna Prana Mora श्याम गौरी अंगे दीवा चंदनेरा गंधा श्याम गौरी अंगे दीवा चंदनेरा गंधा चमर डुलाबो कबे हेरिबो मुख चंद्र राधा कृष्ण प्राण मोरा जुगल किशोरा राधा कृष्ण प्राण गठिया माला तीर माला दीवो दुहर गोले गठिया माला तीर माला दीवो दुहर गोले अधरे तुलिया दीवो कर्पूर तंबूले जुगल किशोरा जुगल किशोरा जुगल किशोरा राधा कृष्ण प्राण मोरा जुगल किशोरा ललिता विशाखादि जतो सखी वृंदा ललिता विशाखादि जतो सखी वृंदा आज्ञाय करीबो सेवा चरनार वृंदा आज्ञाय करीबो सेवा चरनार वृंदा जुगल किशोरा जुगल किशोरा जुगल किशोरा जुगल किशोरा राधा कृष्ण प्राण मोरा जुगल किशोरा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु दासेरनु दास श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु दासेरनु दास सेवार भिलासा करे नरोत्तम दास सेवार अभिलाषा करे नरोत्तम दास नरोत्तम दास नरोत्तम दास नरोत्तम दास ठाकुर नरोत्तम दास नरोत्तम दास ठाकुर नरोत्तम दास ओ राधा कृष्ण प्राण मोरा जुगल किशोरा राधा कृष्ण प्राण मोरा जुगल किशोर जय राधे जय कृष्णा जय राधे जय कृष्णा जय राधे जय कृष्णा जय राधे जय कृष्णा जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Radhe Shyam.
Haribol, thank you so much, Prabhu, for
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much for giving us your time.
No. Thank you so much to invite me over there and giving me the opportunity. Thank you to Yashanandan Prabhu and everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks to you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing more of your kirtan across the rest of this month. Haribol. So I think now we've come to the end of our time. So all I have left to say is Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And I look forward to seeing you all at 6 p.m. UK time.